Welcome to Cash Cab. Just kidding, but that is pretty much what I felt like with today's episode. It was impromptu, hadn't met this person before, and we just dug in, did an episode, and you know what? It basically was a case study from the topics of last week's episode, all about niching down to scale up, simplifying to scale, all of that. Come and join me. This week's episode is super fun, and I'm pretty sure I belly chuckled the deepest I've ever done on this podcast.
Welcome to the Business Bites Podcast, the podcast for busy entrepreneurs. Whether you're an online entrepreneur or seeking after brick and mortar success, this podcast brings you quick bites of content so you can learn and grow anywhere you are. Now here's your host, Rachel Brainke.
Just a reminder that we are releasing the free Real Biz Real Life Challenge coming soon. It'll get you set up for 2021, but you have to get on the wait list in order to get notified of it. So make sure you hop over to rachelbrainke.com and do it. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello, friends. Welcome to another week of the Business Bites Podcast. I'm doing something a little different today. Y'all know I'm all about pivoting and making the most of my time. Well, on Wednesdays are my big batch podcast recording, but my one guest for today had something come up. I hope they're okay. So I got onto Twitter and to my audience and I said, hey, who's out there? Who would like to come on and talk? And Blaine Corday was like, hey, I'll do it. And so what we're going to talk about a bit today is his path in entrepreneurship, some freelancing, building a product when he realized that there was a need in the marketplace. And yeah, I almost, Blaine, I almost feel like this is Cash Cab. Like you got in the back of my car and I'm like, Cash Cab.
Yeah, it was a little spontaneous.
Yeah. No, so I love it. So let's start with who you are, how you got into this, and then we'll move into the meat of the education for them.
Sure. So my name is Blaine. I am a dad, a tech founder, and before that, a tech freelancer for a number of years. I'm a programmer by trade, and I kind of have an entrepreneurial family, and got into all this to kind of build things that people use. And along the way, I realized that where my real passion lies is building products and fixing problems for people, and hopefully build some products along the way.
So explain to me, and obviously we got connected because I'm legally affiliated being an attorney, and your product is for attorneys, which we'll get into. How did you get into the legal space though? I mean, I guess let's start here. Let's explain what your product is, how you came with that, and then we can talk about like how you even got into dealing with lawyers like me.
Sure. So a few years ago, I got brought into as a freelancer. I got brought into a local project with a nonprofit to help anybody fill out and navigate the court system for family law. So if somebody needed a divorce or custody of their kids, we would build a free tool for anybody to help with that. And so I was building this product and realized just kind of the opportunity in legal to make an impact. So I started looking for alternative solutions that I could build a product in. I liked the space, and I have there's a few businesses in my family, so I was kind of attracted to the corporate side. Started exploring it, and we realized through with a partner of mine that the way that corporate lawyers deal with small businesses in particular often leaves the small business finding cheaper or free solutions online to their legal needs early on in the business. So we tried to find some different ways that we could make that more efficient and cost effective for a lawyer to serve a part of the market that they might not otherwise serve. And so we just kind of iterated and ended up with the product today, which is Fidoo. We are a client portal for law firms to bring their clients into to create, sign, store, and negotiate the day-to-day contracts that they use to run their business, like employment agreements, sales agreements, NDAs, that kind of stuff. And the clients can do all of this stuff on their own, but also under the kind of guidance and supervision of their lawyer. So, it's bringing. Try to think of it as we're bringing this scary thing for entrepreneurs to find and talk to lawyers. Sometimes,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
there's the fear of how much a bill is going to be or whatever. We try to kind of flip that relationship a little bit, make it something that's palatable for entrepreneurs early on, and have some short term and long term benefits for the lawyer as well.
I love it because the tagline of it is we help law firms provide an amazing client experience. And what I'm about to say, I can say because I am an attorney. So I'm not just going to completely, like, bash, but it is very true that the majority of attorneys that are out there, especially those that are working with entrepreneurs, may not have necessarily been entrepreneurs themselves. The first time they may be working for themselves is when they're owning a law firm. And I don't think it's so much that they don't want to provide an amazing client experience. They just don't have the tools. So I absolutely love the way that you identified this need because actually myself, that's one of the things that we do. My law firm is Eden Law, and we do a lot of business contracts and intellectual property. And I've always extremely valued, and I was just talking about this before getting on the podcast with my team, extremely valued the way that we quickly turn around and provide a good client experience. And it was interesting because I was trying to kind of put a square peg in a round hole the first few years of the law firm because I was like, oh, I have to use legal based type systems, but none of them were providing now what I'm seeing you provide, the whole client portal, making it easy, the interfacing type. And so I struggled for a long time in the legal field. I'm a little different than most, but I struggled and I imagined, and I still imagine that I have the mindset of looking to provide that client experience. A lot of attorneys don't know how to do that. And so often when they don't have the tools, they're just fighting their way through and then wondering why there's lack of retention or lack of attracting clients. So I love that you identified the whole client experience aspect because, like you honed in on, coming to an attorney is expensive, cumbersome, and come on, most of us are downright boring. And so you want to have a little joy out of the relationship and have a good experience. I want to ask you with this, what made you, after deciding this is what you want to do, what made you go into this sort of model? I mean, we're looking at a subscription based model as opposed to, I mean, I guess I don't know what the alternatives would be. Were there other type models that you kind of threw around in your head?
No, pretty much settled on SaaS early on.
Hmm.
With tech, it's really hard to build a product when you don't have the recurring revenue because
Mhm.
your costs your costs aren't fixed.
Right.
Tech needs to be maintained. There's security concerns to keep going on. Servers cost a lot of money, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so there's a lot of good reason to do this, but the thing that we played around with a lot was, do you charge one fee for a firm? Do you charge
Mhm.
it based on the number of documents? Do you charge it uh, based on a number of clients? We ended up sticking with a tiered model that was based on the number of lawyers using the app because we
Mhm.
felt that that was a good proxy to the size of the firm and the value
Mhm.
that somebody would get from the product. And I try to think of these things as much as I can about from the perspective of how much value is the customer getting and how can we price according to that, not necessarily against what a cost of the business might be or
Mhm.
something like that.
Mhm.
There's a lot of like motivations behind it, right? I don't want personal motivations. I don't want somebody to not have in the back of their head that they don't want to bring on another client because the
Mhm.
tools are
Mhm.
going to cost more, or
Mhm. Mhm.
these might not be big numbers in the end, but there's a lot of back of the mind psychological stuff that could come into here, and so yeah,
Mhm.
it's a lot
No,
of experimentation.
no, and I love it. I think, what's funny is this last week, one of the episode, I did a solo episode about simplifying, like niching down. And one of the things I talked about was who you're talking to, like who are you selling to?
Oh
But
yeah.
here you've targeted that you can talk to a variety of people. You can talk to those that are the solo attorney or solo service-based type business, but it's also scalable since it's by lawyer user. and like the number of clients and templates and so forth, it's scalable for even larger firms to use. And so I really enjoy the way that like it's a sliding scale, but that messaging doesn't get lost because it's so emphasizing that helping law firms provide the amazing client experience. But
Yeah,
highlight to y'all, if you didn't listen to that episode last week, make sure you go check that one out.
I will. Yeah, and so one of the things on that is it, niching is critical.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a mistake that I've made so many times. I it's something that as you adjust your marketing, I always have to remind myself that I need to do this more.
Mhm.
But it's a scary thing. But what you realize when you do it is that you're not uh, you're not narrowing down the people that you're talking to as much as you're narrowing down the people that you're talking to right now.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
something that I found was that even though I talk a lot to smaller firms, um, it doesn't stop somebody from connecting you with a really big firm and you
Mhm.
talking to them. It's just that your marketing doesn't speak to the big firm.
Mhm. Mhm. And
So
like
yeah,
for
by
us,
focusing on one, you're not stopping the other. You're just
yeah.
not talking to them yet.
Yep. Yep. I always look at it kind of like a bell curve. You're talking that very
Yeah,
pointed one at the top, but you're going to capture the other ones. And it's interesting is you really are pretty niched here. I mean, we kind of just dumped a smaller firm versus larger firm, but think about it. Even the services that you're providing here, this dashboard and all of this, you could have gone even broader to be all sort of professional services, right? But
yeah,
you've niched
yeah.
it down just to attorneys, and so I think that's where the success
And really
is gonna
just
come
corporate inside of
from. Mhm.
legal.
Yeah, I mean, that's true because and that's a really good point. I mean, because I'm thinking of like broadly of like all professional, including like accountants and financial planners and all this, niche to lawyer, then like you just said, even niche even further down to like corporate lawyers. Yeah, no, I think within that, you're even going to attract like the nonprofit attorneys,
Yeah,
obviously the solo base. So I think, and we're walking through this. I know a lot of those that are listening are probably not in the SaaS type of business yet. Maybe it's something because it's something I've rolled around in my head a lot about, of my own products or services to provide. But if you look at the structure of the way that Blaine has done this, just approaching it of finding the need, who he's talking to, niching down, and then allowing for it to be scalable within that. And another thing with this too, and what I love the simplicity, as we're talking, I'm looking at the pricing chart that you have, and I love the simplicity of it because another thing I talked about in the last episode was not trying to offer 1,500 different options. I've gotten on all my sites are WordPress. So I've gotten on like WordPress plugin sites and they give you like 1,500 different options. And I'm just like, like I just can't choose.
yeah,
Just give me one
yeah,
plugin that shows me what I need it to do and it'll do it. And I feel like that's what your chart conveys. And that's where the success comes from.
yeah. And so if you look at my pricing, it's pretty simple. It's 59 a month per lawyer user or 179 per lawyer user. But I would say um, the the majority of my customers don't fit into either one of those,
Hmm.
um, because you get on the phone with somebody and their needs are different.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was early on, or early customers when we're experimenting, they're not in these brackets also. But you just I have a third option here, which is just a contact us button. And the reality is you can plan all this stuff out, but in the end, when you're talking to somebody, they might not fit in, so they don't get into one of those brackets. That's totally fine. They
Mm-hmm.
still,
Mm-hmm.
it's still monthly. The pricing is based on the value they get. It, you don't have to. You're not pigeonholing yourself into these options. You're just
Mm-hmm.
presenting these options, and you're
Mm-hmm.
giving. It's more context to me. Um, it's knowing that the price is roughly $60 a month, so I know
Mm-hmm.
that it's not $1,000 a month,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? It's all the that kind of stuff, instead of, like you said, 1,000 different options, which I've worked at companies and on projects where it's you need a calculator to figure out what the price is going to be, and like it just doesn't work because you're just trying to do too much.
Yeah.
When you talked about simplification before is absolutely right. Um,
Well,
yeah.
because the overcomplication, I feel like sometimes entrepreneurs feel like, well, I'm the expert, I'm providing this service, so I need to show them everything and it has to be all of this. And it's like, that's where you get paralyzed. And actually, the example I always think of, I am the worst when we go to restaurants. I will hem and haw over a menu, even though I order the same thing every time,
Yeah,
where I just cannot make a choice. I don't know. It's like I
me
have
too.
FOMO. I'm afraid of
It's
missing
analysis
something.
paralysis.
Yeah, exactly. But like when I go to Cheesecake Factory and they hand me like a phone book sized menu, my anxiety goes through the roof and I'm just like, I don't even want to eat. I don't even know what I want. And I have to tell the servers when they're like, do you want more time? I'm like, no, please stand here and like breathe on me and stare at me until I do something. But I feel it's the same way when you see whether you're in SaaS, or you're service based or you're product download, whatever it is that you offer, the more options we fall into this trap of, okay, if we offer more options, we can serve more people, we can make more money, we can, there's something for everyone, which then you're talking to no one. But
Yep.
exactly what you just said, it's this paralysis aspect of things. You're not known for something specific, you're not able to cut through the BS. And I love what you've done, and I'm going to stick this the screenshot and the links to all this into the podcast show notes at rachelbranke.com, because I want the listeners, I want y'all to see how he's outlined this and then re-listen to what he just said a little bit ago. There's that contact us. So he's not, like he said, pigeonholed in these two options, but he's removed that anxiety. I have an anchoring point of the price. I fairly know what I'm going to receive, but then I still have an option to get something fine tuned. And I think that's a wonderfully perfect balance, the way that you've done this, because I've seen some really bad examples in SaaS and just in general. So kudos to you. You did good here.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I can
Yeah,
choose. I'm
it's
not
like
having
this is
paralysis.
probably the 80th iteration of that
Yeah.
pricing model. And like, not all the time, you're not always going to figure it out right away. You're
Yeah.
not always going to figure it out on the 80th time, but like take it one step at a time, and I don't know, track as much as you can and talk to
Hmm.
people along the way. And
Hmm.
yeah, like the idea that you have all this complex pricing leads to one of two things. Either people don't know what you're selling and how much it is because they can't figure it out, or you get into the menu problem. And I feel exactly the same thing when I get to a restaurant with a giant menu. I end up either ordering the same thing that I get all the time at
Hmm.
all of my my default order, um, and I'm stressed out, or right, I'm not happy, and
Hmm.
you can do better.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're talked a little bit just about like consumer paralysis, but also think about it from the entrepreneur, the internal side. So many can become paralyzed and not get their product pushed out to market. I was
Yeah,
tweeting and pushing out this week that imperfect presence prevails over perfect procrastination. I was
ooh,
in an
that's a good one.
alliteration mood. But yeah, it's better, like you said, to push out the pricing and know that you can carve into your terms, and that may change pricing in the future. You can do a whole customer service thing with that if you need to, but you're not tied to that pricing structure for the rest of the business's life.
You're only tied to that pricing structure for the people that you sold at that pricing structure,
Yeah. Yeah. And
right?
even
So if that's
then,
5 people, and you're absolutely right, you can change it.
I probably wouldn't, but yeah.
Companies change pricing all the time.
Yeah.
People are used to it. And if you're providing good value, they won't
Mhm.
care. I know a local company. I think of this story every time that I think about pricing. He switched models a couple years into his business, ended up like at a 10 to 15 times more expensive price than it was before for his existing customers.
Mhm.
And because he was providing such value, he
Mhm.
articulated in a good way. Like he talked about why we're doing this. It's better for the business. We can build more stuff for you. Um, he got every single one of his customers on the new pricing.
It's all about how you do it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a side note, this was like we started this company with $400 per lawyer per month as the pricing. And
Wow. So,
that was thinking at the time we were thinking we were going to go after bigger firms,
mhm,
different customers all together.
mhm.
And that didn't last very long, but and that I would say that's a very wrong price to start with, but it doesn't matter today that that was the price that we started at.
Mhm.
We
Mhm.
launched with that, we figured it out after.
Yeah.
But we had
And
a price.
it's all about, like you said, measuring and fine tuning that. And that message can be everything. That goes with your own messaging, who you're talking to, the pricing structure, the
Hmm.
products and offerings. Let me ask you, I'm looking at on this chart, I'm looking at the things that are included in the different tiers. Have those inclusions changed as well, or just the
Yeah.
pricing? Okay.
Yeah. The number of clients, the number of templates that's kind of the two main things.
Mhm.
We recently added the staff user line, so we charge
Mhm.
a little bit a month for a staff user, um,
Oh, I like that.
just to just as a little bit of a proxy to some external value. Like, if
Mhm.
you have a big staff but only one lawyer, I think there's a
Mhm.
little bit of value that comes along the way. And we didn't think it was our primary value point, but we did want to capture a little bit of that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, this has totally changed. Uh,
Mhm.
all of those things have. And it will as we release more features. Um,
Mhm.
we have a whole part of the product that is included for everybody right now, but I've long been thinking of making it only an upper tier feature.
Hmm.
Um, you you experiment with these things and you play with them all the time.
Mhm. And, I kind of want to give a little bit of an example here. I'm glad that we've transitioned the conversation, which, by the way, y'all, we don't have an outline for this. This was complete, like,
Oh yeah.
impromptu on the street with a camera type of deal.
About
But no,
3 minutes before we went live is when I
pretty
found
much.
out we
And
were doing this.
obviously, we're not in person because of pandemic. But no, I've actually gone through this with my own businesses. More, it's like you got to practice what you preach. And so this year, we really have hammered down on simplifying, and because it's easy for me, even almost 20 years into doing this, to be like, oh my gosh, if I don't throw everything and shove everything into this and provide all these products and all these services, I'm not going to be able to serve everyone that I want to. And I was finding that people were becoming confused. We've already talked about that, but it definitely, I love the evolution and of how you can niche down and then expand. Because I think when you're looking at like penetrating a market, meeting a need, in the beginning, you really have to be known for that one specific thing.
Yeah.
And then you can add and expand. I think about like DoorDash, for example, was food delivery. Well, now they're adding on grocery delivery because they're trying to take on Instacart. And so they were very narrowed in, actually, they've had many evolutions of how they have phased and grown and expanded, and then pandemic just helped them. But it's being very narrowly targeted on who you're talking to. So let me ask you this, Blaine. One of the things that I mentioned in the last episode was maybe you want to talk to different audiences. Do you have in your mind of potentially like copying and pasting this model, maybe for like CPAs, not on this website, but like creating a whole new brand for CPAs?
Um, yes, although all right, I haven't told anybody this, but we'll get into it. Um, one of the one of the interesting things that I've been thinking about lately is um, trying to use the fact that we provide a better client experience
Mhm,
and specifically targeting clients. Um, trying to find clients that can help influence
mhm,
firms
mhm,
to implement some of these things in their practice. So less about a different market to sell our core product to, and more trying to sell to um, an ancillary market. Trying to shift things around a little bit.
yeah.
Um, our product is pretty specific to legal. I don't see switching up the core market.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
frankly, the market is big enough. Even
Oh,
if we go down the niche road for small business corporate lawyers,
mm-hmm.
worldwide, that's a gigantic market, and that market is poised to grow with our product.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel the need to expand from that, although certainly would down the road. It's more, how do I approach that same market from different angles?
Oh, all right. So simplifying in your messaging and or what you're providing within that market. Hmm,
Yeah.
I like it. I like it. And the why I'm asking these questions is because I ran through all the ways to simplify, but to maximize the niche, whether it is by, simplifying the products and services you offer, taking that same product and copying and pasting it to other industries or out, consumer avatars, or like getting very narrow specific and then adding on like premium features later on down the line because the market is so big.
Yeah, so the big caveat here is one of the things that we can do in tech is reach broad markets, because we don't
Mm-hmm.
have, there's no specific tie to local.
Mm-hmm.
So markets are inherently bigger for us. Um, but overall, I think when people see a niched market, um, their gut feeling on that is that it's a really small market. But
Mm-hmm.
like I just said, like small business corporate lawyers, do you know how many small businesses there are in North America?
Yes,
Like,
I do.
right, like, yeah, of course you do, but
I do.
that is a gigantic market, right?
And even more now with pandemic.
That
Yeah.
you could be a public company serving, like, in our niche,
Mhm.
flat out. That is a it might seem like a niche down thing, but it is so big. The
Mhm.
opportunity is there. You don't always need to expand beyond those things, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and if you're trying to build a local business, you might need to, of course, expand based on the number of available customers. But
Mhm.
a lot of times, you can provide more value to less people and have a
Mm.
more successful business.
Mhm. Mm.
Um, I think back, one of the best things that I did when I was freelancing was I targeted agencies to help, specifically agencies that didn't have developers on staff, um, help them sell new media type projects. And, there were only maybe a dozen of those companies in the city. But the reality was, to get the business to where I wanted it to be, I only really needed one or two of them. Um, so markets can be bigger if you're providing the right amount of value.
Mhm. Mhm. You know what's funny is I go sometimes I hang out with other lawyers. Very rarely because they're not always that fun. No, I love my lawyer friends, but I'll go to networking events and I'll tell people, I mostly service small businesses, blah, blah, blah. And I've had people even I graduated with, not so much anymore, but like when I first graduated in the first few years, they would look at me with the little sad eyes and they would go, "Can I send you clients? We'd love to help you." Because I have 5 kids, all this. Like, they're like, "Oh, her kids are gonna starve." And I'm like, "No, can I send some to you? Because we're on like a 6-month wait list and people have needs now." And they just kind of look at me and I'm like, because the mindset of the whole niching down and exactly what you just said, servicing more, servicing less people, but servicing them more, and definitely being able to serve them. Is the big key thing, which is what I absolutely love about,
And providing amazing value, not
yeah.
just good value,
Hmm.
right?
Amazing.
You really just touched on the core of what we're doing here is, um, if I can enable more people to better serve their clients, and in the end grow smaller, better practices, um, we'll get less people at those big firms doing the kind of work that,
Mhm.
not that every big firm is bad, but if you can if you can develop the business that you want and the practice that you want and live the life that you want because of that, that's a win to me. And there's a gigantic market of people out there that need legal services. They they don't know how to get it right now. They're scared to go get it.
Yeah.
There's that market is gigantic, and the people that serve it are not going to be billing $400, $500, $600 an hour. Um, 8 hours a day or however many hours you can bill. They're not going to be doing that. They're going to be doing it differently. And in order to do it differently, they need to approach the problem differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, you
And
just said it. I didn't pay him to say this, y'all, but when you talk about the whole like living the life that you want, right? And that's really, we're talking about solving a problem, giving a solution to a problem. But I mean, you're able to provide that not only for the lawyers that come and use your system, they're able to then have more time, more clients, more resources to have the life they want, but also their clients too. And I feel like it's when you're serving, and I'm really emphasizing that word serving, through whatever solution it is that you see is needed in the market, you can directly impact the lives. That's one of the things, and I've shared this on the podcast before, is that I struggled for a long time about going into business law because I initially was going to do criminal law. I wanted to be a prosecutor for child sex crimes. Law and Order SVU is my favorite, and I'm rewatching it for like the 500th time. And I thought that was the way I was going to make my mark on the world. So I struggled for a long time. But it's kind of what you just said, and what we're fleshing out here is you're providing a service to someone who's like me, who is wanting to impact my clients, have time to do that, have a real life. And that is an impact in life. And I think that's even, that's even bigger than when we're sitting here talking about the psychology, anchoring, pricing, simplifying. At the end of the day, that's the end transformation and goal that we want to get to for ourselves and for our consumers.
Absolutely. I used to, when I first started freelancing, I went into business to have more flexibility in life and all this stuff. And eventually you kind of, at least for me, I figured out what I wanted out of life and out of business, and how business can get me kind of what I want out of life more. And along the same timeline, I stopped thinking that all I had to do was work in life to get ahead. And you kind of put all these pieces together, and of course having kids is a big impact on that as well. But we don't, eventually you come to realize that it's not just all about the business that you're running, it's about the life that you're living as you're running the business. And it's a big motivator in my life to help in one small way, provide a little bit of that flexibility and peace to a profession that generally doesn't have it.
That is so true. I think that's probably the biggest belly laugh I've had on this podcast. That is so true. And it's also sad at the same time, because I know so many attorneys that are drowning. They need a resource like this. And the fact that we look beyond just meeting their immediate business needs, the way that it can open up their life is incredible. So Blaine, thank you so much for coming on. Listeners, please, there was so much information here. We may not have taken it and like thrown it in your face. Go through, listen. You can check out the show notes at rachelbranke.com. This is a wonderful framework that we talked about here, and a really good case study, completely impromptu, of ways you can meet your own needs so you can have your real business in real life, but also meet the needs of those that you are looking to serve. So as always, make sure you guys jump into the Business Bites Facebook group. We will have a thread specific to this topic. Let us know what you are doing to serve your clients. And I also want to hear a bit about what your definition of a real business and really what your real life looks like. So till next week, y'all have a good one.
Thanks for joining Rachel on this episode of the Business Bites. For show notes, a list of recommended tools, or referenced episodes, you can find them at businessbitespodcast.com. Until next time.